Is Dorsey to throw. Yeah! He throws it in the end zone.
Yeah! Off to the races. Can they catch it? Cuts it back. Ohio
State wins. The Ohio State of Mind podcast hosted by Josh Keatley and Michael Chen.
Oh, good evening. Welcome to the Ohio State of Mind podcast. I am Chris Runyon, and to my left, your right, is Josh Keatley, who's been running this thing strong for the last, how many years have you been doing this now?
We're on episode 52. So
52?
We're doing it once a week.
Once a week, 52 weeks in a year? Have you been getting it every week? Have you been getting it every week?
No, we've skipped a couple for sure.
Okay.
Mike and I were pretty lackadaisical there at the end too, or there at the beginning too. So
understood. Hey, we've got episode 52. We've got some of the all-time Ohio State greats who have worn 52 there. We've got Jonathan Hankins, we've got DeLong, we got Myers, we got McCullough. Josh, who's your favorite and who have I overlooked this week?
Dude, you didn't overlook anybody, man. Maybe Wyatt Davis deserves to be in there. I mean, that guy was like a five-star recruit, All-American level guy. Jonathan Hankins is probably my favorite. That was the guy that was there when I went to school. Kind of underrated too, and has had a super long, successful NFL career, very much like Dan Wilkinson.
Right.
I like those guys. I appreciate those guys. You know what I mean? So, very, very, very underrated guy. James Cotton's a cool guy too. Anybody that's in Columbus has seen James Cotton at the local fairs and pumpkin patches and shit, signing autographs and stuff. Always a good guy. Had a long career in the CFL, and I think he's the only Buckeye to sack. I think he's the only guy to sack Tom Brady twice. Is that right, Chris?
I think you're actually in the ballpark. Yeah, we're talking 98. Yeah.
Yeah, we got some. He's got some kind of weird 99, right? Yeah, he has some kind of weird Tom Brady stat that he likes to whip out. Steve Myers. There's a couple centers too. You mentioned Steve Myers and Tom DeLeon. Both captains, both All-Americans. Yeah, man. So very quality number. It seems to be more of an offensive line number than anything else. But yeah, man, great number.
Naturally. Before we get into the Buckeye football of the week, let's look back last week. Anything good? Any good news? Buckeye? Actually, just football altogether. We're talking NFL. We're talking the pros. Anything that caught your eye, caught your ear this last week?
Well,
because I've got one.
The Tyler Williams. One. Oh, I'll let you go first. You go.
I've got one. Did you see the stat on the all the Florida football teams this last week? The first time ever the state of Florida on a Saturday in a weekend went 0-11. All Division I football teams, the FCS schools, and both the Bucks and the Jags got beat this week. Mind you, Miami's playing right now. The first time ever.
Well, good. I'm glad I put money on the Rams.
There you go. I don't know what the score is right now.
I don't have it on. It's too distracting. I turned it off. Yeah, man, that's a crazy stat. I was unaware of that. That's wild. Yeah, my I don't really have any fun facts or little tidbits. I did think it was interesting that a lot of people saw Tyler Williams not play last week. I don't know if a lot of people are aware that he did warm up though. Came out in full pads and was running around and stuff. So a lot of people thought he was gonna play. So a lot of people don't. I don't know if they said that on the broadcast, but I saw some people asking about Tyler Williams' injury. And he is, based off of what I know, he's healthy, and they just held him out because they were favored by 40 friggin' points. So I venture to say
I'm gonna go on I'm gonna limit. I'm pretty sure you brought up last week that if they were able to hold him out, they'd probably hold him out.
Yeah.
For this next week coming up. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. A couple teams in the top 5 got bounced this week. A couple teams in the top 5 got bounced this week. Other news. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves. The game we got this week, but that Ohio State Indiana game, another big noon kickoff. What do you think?
I like the noon kickoffs. This has been a hot topic all college football season. I have some buddies that are in the space that are rabid college football fans, know much more than me, much more than me, make a lot more money gambling on it, and they fucking hate it. But that's like, I don't know why. That's such a shocking thing that you talk to these old school guys and they hate the noon kickoff, because when we were growing up, that was the noon game was always the clutch game, the big game. And then it developed, into the primetime matchup because of ESPN.
Right.
And now that Fox has taken over, you're seeing it go back to the noon kickoff. I mean, I think that the most watched games have been at noon this year. I mean, the primetime window's kind of been oversaturated, in my opinion. So I like a good noon game. Coming from someone who goes to the games too, going to a noon game, a noon game or an 8 o'clock game are great. 3:30 games, dude, those wipe up the whole game, the whole day. Dude. You gotta get up there early, you miss all the games. You get home late, you miss all those games. 3:30 absolutely blows, and I feel like that's probably the same for people watching at home too.
Yeah, no, it's being here on the West Coast. It's a 9 a.m. start over here, but I won't argue. Because, all the network rights, ESPN, ABC now, they've got the rights to SEC, SEC pools ratings. Let's be real. The Big Ten pools Ohio State ratings, who's Ohio State got. But you've got, who we had Georgia, Alabama, those primetime games. They're gonna make like gangbusters when it comes to ratings, especially at primetime. Yeah. But for the week that was, big victory. Ohio State stomping a mud hole and walking it dry, 45-0. Yeah. Stomping it so well. It seemed about in the third quarter, Gus Johnson was just tired of it. It seemed like Gus Johnson was ready to get out of there. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're right. It was funny. I went back and I watched it again on Sunday because I recorded it, and I was like, I think he's like ran out of tricks. Like he had like the Maserati Mav and stuff like that. Like this year, just it's Ohio State.
Yeah, it was nice.
Trying to come for JJ. I don't.
Well, the Jack Sawyer scoop and score was the most apparent. It was like, and he coughs it up. Ohio State picks it up, walks in the end zone. That's 35-0. Like, it was like it's almost like he went Jeff Goldblum on that one. He's like, well, God finds a way. I'm Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
No. Big takeaways. What'd you get? What'd you see? What'd you like? You were there. What time did you get to the stadium on Saturday?
Oh, dude, when I get there, I have to get there at like 8:30, 8 o'clock.
No shit.
But because the injury report usually releases about 3 hours ahead of the game.
Makes sense.
So I actually, a lot of people messaged me. They're like, "Oh, this game is boring." A lot of people were leaving the box early. The NFL scouts left in like the first quarter. I'm not exaggerating.
Really?
Yeah, man, it was just a blowout. But those guys always leave early. I was talking. A lot of those NFL scouts come just for the pregame warmups to take photos, size them up, look at how big the frames are, yada yada yada. They chart some stuff, the speed wise when they're up in the box and they go home. So it's not that uncommon, but it was extra early this time. But I had a good time. I liked it because I got to see they emptied the bench. They emptied the bench early. As you guys, as you pointed out in the chat. It was the third drive when Ohio State put in their backups on defense. So I thought that was interesting. But let's go position by position like we always do. It's a shame Mike couldn't join us tonight because I think I might be coming over to the dark side as far as the Julian Saying thing goes.
Okay.
I was sitting down there with my buddy Nick, who I'm sure if he's not listening right now, he will be listening. And he always makes fun of me because I like Devin Brown. Well, Devin Brown came out there and he looked like poo. Now, that one pass, Brandon Ennis dropped it, so it's not on his.
Yeah.
The problem I have for Devin Brown is that the reason why I think that Julian Saying looked better than Devin Brown this past game, even though Saying went 0 for 4, right? You might be like, why would he like Saying after last week? Yeah. Saying went out there and it was like he made a reaction. Mm-hmm. Right, and he was just doing it. The Brandon Ennis dropped that pass, that scramble. He did it. There was no hesitation. Adolph had two drops. Now Devin Brown, like I said, Brandon Ennis dropped that pass on him too. But it seems like he's trying to make the big play every time. So I don't know if I'm comfortable with him being the backup. but I'm definitely seeing like hey, the next year's squad might be Sand. We saw Sand get more snaps too. So I'm not fully there yet because I'm still a Devin Brown homer, but I'm definitely starting to come to the dark side as far as Julian Sand, and he's just more deliberate with what he does. Will Howard, I thought, had another great game.
Right.
I thought had another great game. Before I move on to the running backs, did you have anything to add on the quarterbacks?
Hey, Julian Sand, you're absolutely right. I think your take with Devin Brown is correct. I do think Devin Brown gets out there and tries to get asses out of seats, and it just wasn't clicking. Yeah. It just wasn't there. Julian Sand, you made the comment a couple weeks back, and it maybe just that Fox broadcast got him real good. He is a small guy. A small guy. Julian Sand, he's need to put some meat on his bones, and I am a bit worried about someone with his maybe size and stature going into Austin, Texas next season. But
he's not small in the sense of like, he's like Tate Martell was just a small everything, right? He came in as a small person, as a small quarterback. Julian Sand is a big, for a freshman. If you're walking around campus, he's a big person. But Devin Brown and Will Howard are huge. People don't understand how big they're. Big dudes. They look like defensive ends. They're big dudes. When Devin Brown comes out there, he puts on his 33 jersey. He's standing right next to Jack Sawyer. He's not much smaller. Julian Sand, there's definitely a size difference. So that's my only concern with Sand. But as far as running the offense goes, man, he has a lot of confidence. He has a lot of confidence with what he's done. I think that there's it's very clear evidence. Like, okay, he's getting it. He's understanding. Maybe we start to see the tide shift a little bit more with him going in first before Devin Brown. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but I wouldn't be upset if he did. But yeah, and
with your Will Howard one, I had no qualm with Will Howard. We usually we're sitting there like, okay, hey, Will Howard, he's good for one pick a game. Where is it going to be? No pick this week. Nope. Underthrow, another underthrow could have been for 6. But, hey, we've still got another guaranteed, 3 games.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. Make sure I say that clearly. But it seems like he's gelling. It seems like he's understanding his role. He's becoming that person that let me get what I need to get for the team. Let me do what I have to do to move the sticks and not extra. And I think that Penn State game kind of shook it in place. Like, we don't need you to be Superman out here. And I think he's fitting into there just fine, just well.
No, I agree with you. And honestly, I think he's not CJ Stroud. That's what I keep telling people. Like, people, the underthrown thing, I get it. I understand it. I'm not going to sit here and lie and act like his arm is the most. He's not Joe Milton. With that said, is that if that's what you need to win a championship, that's on Ryan Day, right? Everything he has, you can win with. Way worse quarterbacks. If you rank all the national championship quarterbacks in history, he's in the the upper tier. Like, Will Howard's a good quarterback. He's a good quarterback, and he makes one mistake every game, which is fine. You're going to have that. You're not going to have perfect games. Ohio State fans just need to get used to not seeing CJ Stroud out there. I think that's the big issue, right? And Kyle McCord wasn't that bad. Kyle McCord just wasn't that bad. Kyle McCord is worse than Will Howard. I'm kind of surprised that that's still a thing, but Will Howard is playing better than Kyle McCord. But Kyle McCord just wasn't that bad. The problem with Kyle McCord, we saw it in that 5 interception game, is that when it just snowballs, right? He throws one bad pass. He's like, okay, I'm going to make it up with this pass, but making this extra good. And it's like, dude, why did you do 2 picks now? Okay, I got to make up for it.
When it rains, it pours. No, absolutely.
That was Kyle McCord's issue. Yeah.
I will say this. Let's with our scarlet and gray covered glasses here, Will Howard has the same amount of touchdowns, same amount of interceptions as the new NCAA all-time passing leader, Dylan Gabriel. And one of them is 10th in the Heisman poll, and the other one is 2. One is 10, one is 2. Wild, isn't it?
That COVID year. Yeah, he's been in college for 85 years. That COVID year. I wholeheartedly agree. The worst thing they could have done. But anyways, moving on to running backs. I like the running backs. Well, I thought the running backs played great. I love the 2 running back set. I think we're gonna get to see more of that against Indiana, Michigan. You're gonna see them do some more experimental stuff this week against a shitty Northwestern team. Trayvon Henderson, I thought, played great. He was running a lot of routes. I think he was the third leading receiver on the team, which is awesome. Really trying to show off what he can do in the receiving game, which should really strike fear in the defensive opponents. We both know that they're great blockers. Quinshon Judkins had a good game too. His rushing stats are pitiful, but I don't know if that's necessarily his fault. We know Quinshon Judkins is a great runner. Sometimes you're feeling it, sometimes you're not. TreVeyon Henderson just had the benefit of being out there when the big runs hit, but they're both great runners. Quinshon Judkins was a lead blocker for him a couple times. Also went out for a couple passes, was open. So I have no complaints about the running backs. What about you?
No, I think you see a little bit of nothing to write home about. I think you saw a little bit of frustration with Q early on in the game. A lot of chat and a lot of jawing. Rumor has it that Purdue's head coach almost being trained his head's meltdown. Hey, Matt Rife sucks. One, thank you for the comment. No, Josh here, he's been all season long. It's baffling. This guy got a head coaching job here at Purdue to begin with.
He I was at the press conference. I recorded the press conference of Walters, and it was definitely one of the more awkward ones I've been to. Like the questions, I mean, you guys can go back and watch it. His feet are moving. He's just frustrated. I think he's just a frustrated guy. He used to play defensive back at Colorado. I think it's pretty easy to be a defensive coordinator under a Brett Bielema offense that holds the ball for 45 minutes every game. And Purdue, Brom was a really good coach. Brom was a really good coach, and he did a lot with very little. They just messed up when they hired him, but they can't. I just don't think that they can fire them. I texted you guys this weekend. Purdue does look bigger than I've seen in recent years. Both those quarterbacks are pretty good. They just don't have any skill guys. Brown was really good about getting one or two skill guys. Rondale Moore, David Bell, those kind of guys. And Ryan Wilkers hasn't done that. I mean, their defense was pathetic, but their defensive backs were good. They were big. They were fast. They were moving around. Thieneman, we talked about that last week. I hope Urban Meyer whispered in his ear. So there's definitely signs that what he's doing could make them okay. He was just, I don't think that they're going to be good under Walters, but
no, I'm not going to argue that with you one bit. No, like I was saying earlier, it seemed like he was a little bit more vocal early on. He maybe one tackle away from breaking one a couple times there in the first and second quarter. TreVeyon showed a little bit more versatility. He did, like you said, he was catching balls out the backfield. Looked like what we need to. Gus Johnson brought up a half a dozen times. It seems like, it's great that, especially when it comes to looking at your NFL stock too, starting to get some of these carries down. And it's going to be hard for you to tell, two of the top 5 leading rushers in college football that we're going to start cutting your carries in half. But they're willing to do the little things. And we talked this weekend as well. Hey, it is baffling to watch an empty set with this Buckeye team, with those two premier pass blockers at running back that we have, both Quinshon Judkins and TreVeyon Henderson. You're not taking anything away from this offense by leaving a running back there to block. You're only helping it. I think so. I think, you got a 2-3 wide receiver set, and you have a tight end in there. Our tight end, he's, across the middle of some clear routes and getting parallel. They're catching balls and they're taking them run upfield. I mean, it's not like the tight end is a position when we're spread that we're lacking at when it comes to pass catching ability either. You know what I mean?
No, I'm with you, dude. We are not in the minority on that. I know that you and I have been bitching about this for a couple of weeks, so I did want to ask a couple of other beat writers there, like their opinion on the empty set, and they were all like, "No, it's dumb. It's dumb. Why would he ever do that? Even on 3rd and 15, going to an empty set when you have these kind of running backs is just a dumb idea. They're just too talented. So I don't know why they did that, but I do like the 2 running back set. But moving on to wide receivers." The wide receivers to me were kind of a mixed bag. See, this might be my issue though. I bitch about Ohio State fans not being able to forget CJ Stroud, but maybe I'm not able to forget Marvin Harrison Jr. because I feel like there hasn't been. Jeremiah Smith has been great, but he's been great in the concept of when you're comparing him to other freshmen. Right. And he's been great in college football too, but he hasn't been like, Luther Burden or T-Mac or, some of those guys where they just take over a game. Now, I don't expect that from Jeremiah Smith. I never did. I made that very clear in the preseason. I actually expected that from Mecca Buka, who had like 1 reception. You're just not seeing these guys pull away. But Jeremiah Smith played great. I'm not shitting on Jeremiah Smith at all. played absolutely awesome. So did Jelani Thurman. The problem I had was like Brandon Ennis. He had a couple bad drops. There was a point where he slipped too. It's like, dude, what's going on, man? When are you going to emerge? David Adol, we're talking about the backups, right? He's a walk-on, but he was kind of a guy that we were a little bit of a fan favorite because he had such a big spring game. So when he got on the field, I was like, oh, interesting. And then he had a couple of drops.
Yeah.
So it's like, man, again, that's not really like relevant to like the grand scheme of this Ohio State football season, but it was just something interesting to point out. Emeka slipped a couple times too. The turf was weird Saturday. I know it was super noticeable with Will Howard because he slipped while he had the ball, but there were guys out there slipping around. But yeah, Emeka didn't really, break open a ton. But again, maybe it was because of the turf. G. Scott, good receiver, horrible blocker. At this point, we saw him miss more blocks. At this point, I don't know why Bennett Christian should probably get more play. I like that Jelani Thurman. I thought Jelani Thurman played great. I thought Jelani Thurman played great as a receiver. I thought he played a lot better as a blocker. At least he's active. He's getting in the way.
He had a very nice block on a rushing touchdown. Jelani Thurman did. Yeah.
Yep. And then Jeremiah Smith is Jeremiah Smith, right? He's always very, very good. So that's kind of my big takeaway from the receivers. The receivers are great. I want to be very clear. This is a playoff caliber team. I'm back in. Last week when Mike and I were speaking, I was kind of like, I'm going to be a little hesitant. I'm looking forward to them looking good, but no, I'm pretty much back in. I liked what I saw. I know it's Purdue, but they looked like a very confident team. So I don't think the wide receivers hold them back. They're still some of the best wide receivers in college football. It's just every week I'm kind of like, man, these guys don't get open. I don't know. Last year you would see Marvin Harrison be open by 20 yards on some plays, and you don't really see that a whole lot. But I'm nitpicking for sure.
Well, no, I mean they had I think it's more or less the play calling style as well. You're not seeing a lot of streaks. You're not seeing those skinny posts. You're not seeing those bang eights. You're seeing more small to intermediate passing game. And when you do see that big banger, it's one that's up the seam and at the safety. You know what I mean? And it's maybe once, maybe twice a game. So no,
that's also a factor. I didn't take it into consideration as much as I should have.
No, you're absolutely right when it comes to Jeremiah Smith, though. Yeah, hey, this is you are going to expect a Luther burden, but you're going to expect a Luther burden anytime after 9 games.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Give him those 9. But no, you've got Jeremiah Smith breaks the freshman all-time receiving record. The great CC gave him his roses. He said, "Good job, young man." You got Emeka Buka and Jeremiah Smith both with 40 plus receptions, 500 yards, and at least 8 touchdowns. The only duo in the country. The turf's a thing. I mean, it's got to be a thing. I think Gus Johnson was on the broadcast. He's like, the band's out here all the time. I mean, I get maybe just an overuse or just a constant on it, stomping, moving, scooting, what have you. But like it looks bad. I think I brought that up a couple weeks back. If you watch other broadcasts, it's almost like that field is in a grayscale. Like where's the vibrant? Where's that Tennessee at night? That just that green that's just like, oh, like this is a coliseum. It's almost just like it needs ripped out. Well, we talked about also that the Safe Light sponsorship, they just ripped out a patch and just flapped another one on there.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to make excuses for them, but maybe it's they do a lot of concerts in there and soccer matches.
No, hardly. Graduations, have you? Yeah. What you brought up Will Howard. Will Howard did say in the press that he thinks he needs to get him some new cleats, slipping too much out there.
I don't know if that's going to matter. I don't know. I think they need to replace it, but
no, I mean, but when was the last time they replaced it? That's my question.
Like 2014, right? It's old, right?
I think after the national championship season, they replaced it. Yeah. So I mean, we're on 10 years of this turf.
I'm pretty sure we should double check that, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Because we didn't redo the turf when they painted the field. When they put the new logos on the field, no, I don't think so. That's a good Google, though. That's definitely a good Google. But in regard to the offensive line, I thought the offensive line played great again. Everybody was when Carson Hinsman got hurt, but he went back out there. He looks fine. Yeah. That might be a guy that I sit out against Northwestern because Austin Saravel played fine in his absence.
I can see that.
Definitely a difference. Definitely a difference, but I don't think you're going to need it against Northwestern, especially with the caliber defensive line that they have. Tigre Shabola, I talk a lot of shit about, or I have lately. Played great. They had him on the move a couple times.
Couple times he's pulled.
Yeah, he's just not a body bag kind of guy, but he's definitely
Yeah.
good. He definitely gets the way he had a good game, so I'm not going to bitch about him. The offensive
He's not
line looked good, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's not a body bag guy. He's almost, I just think, because of his size and his stature, when he is pulling from that guard position, he is a nimble-footed individual that's coming around that corner, coming off that edge. He's very nimble in his feet. He's almost up on his toes,
Yeah, man. No, he's a great athlete. He just doesn't have that killer instinct. But you just, as long as you're getting in the way, I don't care. And he does that at a great level. On the defensive line, there's not really a whole lot to bitch about here either. The defense made a couple of interesting things. I have more complaints about the defense than I do the offense. They put in the second team defense on the third drive. I thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's where Purdue looked really good on that drive. So obviously the defense did not, but there were some guys that shined. They experiment with that jack position again. I wish they would stop doing that. It doesn't work.
Right.
It's horrible. They don't have anybody that fits that mold. They put Mitchell Melton there, and Mitchell Melton had a really good game, and then he moved into jack, and he was a non-factor. Stop doing that. The block punt, I know that's not technically the defense, but that was Caden Curry on that block punt. I thought that was cool.
Yep.
Purdue's got awful special teams, as everybody probably noticed, but I thought it was schemed really well. I thought Caden Curry played well, not just the block punt, but he played well when he got an opportunity. Edric Houston, big 5-star defensive tackle. I know that Mike was high on him in the offseason. We talked about him. He came in as a defensive end. The scouting report I wrote in the preseason, I talked about moving him to defensive tackle because I didn't know if he had the elite first step to play defensive end, but he would have an elite step at 3 tech, which is where he played last weekend. And I thought he thrived. I thought he looked great. We talked about Tyleik Williams. So once Tyleik Williams is healthy and he's entering in that rotation, I don't think Edric Houston's going away. I really like Edric Houston.
Agree. Let's not forget a boneheaded penalty. The defense did in fact bail him out.
That's fair. But I compare that to kind of like when Jeremiah Smith had that fumble in his first game, where it's like, all right, sometimes
young man growing pains.
Right. Exactly. We got out of the way. Let's move on. Shit happens. It didn't cost him anything, or it didn't cost him a game. Jack Sawyer finally had a great game. Looked explosive around the edge. Looked really good. I was happy to see that. Caden McDonald. We've talked about Caden McDonald a couple weeks now. He went in for Tyleik Williams against Penn State. Looked really good. Looked really good again last week. But that's kind of my takeaway with the defensive line. I'm very happy with how those guys played. What about you?
I'm in a complete agreement with you on everything, wildly enough. But I will say this: what I'm looking forward to the next game, because again, we're seeing a small improvement with JTT. We're seeing a small improvement with Jack Sawyer. Jack Sawyer, 5 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, half a sack, fumble recovery.
Yeah.
Love it. But we've got to build. We've got to build on it. And the both of them. I don't think we've seen good games followed by better games. And I mean, they've got the ability to do it this week and go into Wrigley Field, but we've got to see some growth. We've got to see some people talk about, oh wow, hey, what about this defensive line? Hey, you guys know these guys' names because we've been saying preseason All-American Jack Sawyer and JTT forever. But where does it show and where does the dominance begin with these individuals? Defensive line guys came back in, like I said, Jackson, Curry, Houston as well. They stepped up. They got their chance. They played well. Like I said, boneheaded call, but hey, young kid, he's gonna get right. And believe me, I'm sure he was over there holding their breath, especially when they were getting close to the red zone. But Ohio State made him pay, or not even made him pay. Ohio State held tough and got off the field.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I agree with you what you said about Jack Sawyer too. I think we're going to see him explode next week against a Northwestern team that's not like the strong offensive line Northwestern teams that we've seen in the past. But on to the linebackers. This is where it's a shame that Stewart's not on the show today because CJ Hicks had another bad game, missed tackles pretty much every time he was out there. He's a great blitzer, but if you can't sack the guy and the guy just runs away, what are you doing? And then Gabe Powers had another great game. Every time I don't think Gabe Powers had a bad play. Gabe Powers is going to get more playing time. Everybody on the sideline was chirping about it, talking about it. Guys that I see it every game. I'm biased. I'm biased towards Gabe Powers, right? And I understand that.
Right.
But people that don't usually talk about him, we're talking about him. But they're like, man, what's going on? They're going to lose this kid if they don't play him. So I
Right.
would expect Gabe Powers to get more playing time as well. Like I said, it's a damn shame that Stewart's not on the show because I think that this might have been Gabe's best game. He was just, I don't know, he was just very impactful.
I mean, yeah, take away the interception return week 1 as a hey, this is my sample as a whole this game as playing linebacker. I thought he had a phenomenal game. I didn't.
Yeah.
Maybe I was distracted or something. I didn't see a lot of Arvell Reese this week. And what is the search
well, the
for him? What am I missing?
I think that's what made Gabe look even better is that the linebackers didn't look especially good. Last week I went on and on about how great Cody Simon was and how I kind of felt like Cody Simon reached that next level. I don't know. Him and Sonny Styles just looked bleh. This game. I mean, Maccabee
taking up space.
Maccabee had 80 rushing yards, and I think that I attribute that a lot to the linebackers not filling gaps and closing the hole and getting to him in time. Because he's not a great running back. He hasn't done shit all year. Right, this is not the Maccabee that we saw from last year. The linebackers were probably my big bugaboo on the defensive side of the ball this week. But the defensive backs, I thought that they were the defensive backs were super fun to watch as far as the backups go because Jermaine Matthews stepped up, looked great. Malik Harford stepped up, looked great. Caleb Downs, I thought Caleb Downs had. I know he has a great game every game, but he had a really great game in my eyes this game because he's just so fat when he plays these lesser opponents too. He is very often the fastest, strongest dude on the field. So it's super fun to watch. But yeah, man, the defensive backs, no complaints there either. It was fun to watch those backups because they all look like those two guys look like they can hang.
No, you're absolutely right. I be completely honest with you. I'm baffled that I'm not seeing Matthews out there every play. Matthews deserves to be on the field at all times. And your sense with Caleb Downs as well. You always have this little stigma like, hey, if your safety's making tackles, you guys have a problem. Well, when he's running downfield and he's the first person to the ball, it's fun to watch because you know the caliber of individual has. You know the football IQ is so high for this kid. It's next level. It's where these lesser opponents in the Big Ten, he's got an idea what you're doing. And if he doesn't, he knows what you could do instead. And he's setting himself up. There's no wasted movement with Caleb Downs if you watch him.
No.
If you watch him, he's stepping up, he's not backing up, he's not shifting, he's not doing that. He's getting somewhere where he has, this is my guy, this is my zone of responsibility, and here are my contingencies. He is a very, very smart player. Yes. No wasted movement. He moves with purpose. Absolutely. Yeah. Good call.
Yeah, no, he's an absolute stud. I think that they're starting to allow him to be more free too. He was kind of a non. There are some games where he was a non-factor, but if they continue to play him like they did last week, it could be very. We could see him do some further damage. But that was basically my rundown. Like I said, that was a great game. Overall, I was on the fence. It's very important that I try to remain as objective as possible. The Oregon loss was disappointing. The Nebraska game was disappointing. The Penn State game was great, but it's important that you do provide an asterisk there because James Franklin is not a good coach. Right. So I want to make sure I put an asterisk there. But and I know Purdue's bad. I know Purdue's bad. But this is the kind of game, this is the kind of team that Ohio State comes out sleepy. And they were clunky the first 2 drives or whatever. But everything after that was smooth sailing. This is a very confident, fast, powerful, strong team. So yeah, I think that this is a national championship caliber team.
No, naturally, but I mean, again, coming out sleepy the first drive, it's almost a standard now. I mean, we're almost watching that first drive and we're expecting it. It kind of has been.
I mean, yeah, that sounds worse than when you say it like that. It's more disappointing than I thought it was when I said it in my head. But yeah,
no. Looking at my rundown, of course. Hey, we talked before the show. Hey, just let Fox know that the Horseshoe does have lights. We can play games at night. We talked about Jeremiah Smith and his touchdown receiving record. We broke down the stats for.
Well, he got all 3 of them, right? Touchdown, receptions, and receiving yards this game.
Yep, he got all 3. He hit the trifecta this week. We spoke about both Emeka Egbuka and Jeremiah Smith and their stats. That turf again, we spoke on it. It's terrible. But again, we're talking about night games. Hey, do Do we have to be the 5 seed to get a damn night game in Ohio Stadium?
No shit, dude.
Is that what it's going to come to? Do we have to be that 5 seed to host a nighttime playoff game so we can watch the Bucks under the lights in Ohio? Not a night game in the season. Name the last time Ohio State has not played a night game in the Horseshoe.
Well, they played a night game. Didn't they play Rutgers last year at night?
They did. I'm saying name the last time they didn't, because this season they won't.
Did. Oh,
this season they won't unless they host a playoff game.
Was Western Michigan at night? Was one of those? No, you're right. I think you're right.
Mm-hmm. Western Michigan was a 3:30 game. There's not a single night game this year in the Horseshoe. No.
Yeah, that's crazy, dude. There's got to be a night game, bro. They can't do that to them.
Like I said,
I didn't even think. I thought for sure one of these shitty conference games was at night, but you're right.
Nope. And of course, we went to Michigan State at night. We went to Oregon at night.
No, Western Michigan was at 7:30, dude.
Damn it, if you're not right. Okay, you're right. Now I'm thinking about it.
That's the only one. But you're right though, because. But you're right though that when's the last time there was when's the last time they didn't have a Big Ten game at night, right? Your point still stands.
Game at night, yeah. Your
point still stands. It's weird. It is weird. Yeah. Usually there's a Rutgers at least. Yeah, they're not. So Indiana's at noon, Michigan's at noon. They're done.
Yeah. And then hopefully Indianapolis and Oregon and 2 weeks after that.
Yeah. Now we talked about that. Well, if we get time, we'll touch on it. But we did the playoff bracket came out, and that 5th seed. I tell you what, there is it's going to be upsetting. Huh? Well, if Ohio State doesn't get the top 4 seed, the thing is you want to stay within that top 5, because that 5th seed you get home field advantage against against the group of 5, which is probably Boise State, and then you play the number 4 ranked team. The 4th seed team, which is going to be the shittiest of the power teams. So you're talking about, in this situation, be BYU, right? I like Ohio State's chances of both of those, right? And you want them to have home field advantage. We both agree with that. You want them to have the bye. Obviously, we agree with that. But you definitely don't want them to have the 6th seed, 7th seed. That's when it starts to be like, oh man, come on. But the 5th seed going to play.
Well, naturally, I mean, this is probably a conversation for a later week at the same time. But you think about it, that first week of playoff games isn't until the 20th of December. Mind you, they're going to get 1 week after the Michigan game. They're going to get a Big Ten conference, hopefully, conference championship game, and then there's 3 weeks there, Or if they get that conference champion bye, they're going to get 4 weeks.
We'll have a show in the offseason where we talk about how to make that better, because that's just too long of a layoff. Yeah. Now that you're extending the playoffs like this, it doesn't make any sense to just shove this all within 2 weeks in goddamn January and December. But I guess that's a conversation for later.
Because you can't forget about the Army-Navy game that week too.
That's true. Well, that needs to be by itself. That does need to be by itself.
Oh, naturally. I'm not going to argue there.
Happy Veterans Day too, by the way. Thank you for your service, Chris.
To any veterans out there, thank you for what you've done, what you do, and what you continue to do for us. But we're going to move on to this week coming up. Yes. The Buckeyes, they are taking on the Wildcats, and they are taking on the Wildcats at Wrigley Field. Josh, what do you think?
So Northwestern's bad. We know that, right? Ohio State is favored by 30.5 points. Northwestern, they did beat Purdue in overtime. So we think that they're better than Purdue. They probably are better than Purdue.
By a touchdown.
Probably not much better than Purdue. Yeah, they're Northwestern's a team that's had issues. They're not bad. Okay. Talent-wise, the way they play, the toughness that they play with, the never give up attitude, I would put them more in a tier of they're definitely a tier above Purdue. They are. I know that the score doesn't indicate that, but they are. Purdue rolls.
I would agree.
Purdue's a soft team. The thing that makes Northwestern thrive is their defense. Their defense is still very tough, right? Braun was a defense coordinator at championship FCS program, and Fitzgerald was a former All-American linebacker. So those roots are still there. They got 2 linebackers that are all conference caliber guys. Xander Mueller, who's dealt with injuries, that's been his big issue. He was out last week. I don't know if he's going to play this week either. It's kind of what they're talking about. But he was kind of the lifeblood, 6'3", 235 pounds. There were some rumors that he was going to be an early round draft pick. He was on a Nagurski watch list. Very talented linebacker.
Talking to day 2 kind of guy.
Yeah, which is high for a Northwestern linebacker. Which high for a linebacker at all. So but he's been bumped and bruised. So I don't know if we're even going to see him. He's the second leading tackler. The first leading tackler is Mac Alline, 6'1", 227, former 4-star recruit. Got to start last year. He leads the team with tackles. He got 59. He's a really talented guy. Another all-conference guy, caliber guy. The linebackers are tough. They flow to the ball. They're big. They'll hit you. They'll smack you in the mouth. Their defensive backs are good too. Koko Zima is another guy that's going to be drafted. I didn't know this. I didn't have him on my draft boards. But a lot of NFL scouts have told me that he is going to be drafted relatively early. Might surprise you. 5'11", 205, a safety that flows the ball really well. Their cornerbacks, Darren Johnson and Josh Fussell, stand about 6 foot, 200 pounds. Fussel's the guy that really kind of like I have an asterisk next to. Like if I was Ryan Day and I was looking to tamper in the portal, Fussel's pretty, like I say, 6 foot. He's from Ohio. They kind of missed. They didn't even try to recruit him. He wasn't supposed to start for Northwestern, but an injury occurred in the offseason, is how I heard it. I don't remember what happened, but he's done really well. He had 5 tackles against Washington early in the year. Washington really tried to pick on him, and they kind of paid for it. And then their other safety, Devin Turner, 6'1", 205, and Brandon Turner, 5'11", 191. Brandon Turner is another guy that NFL scouts told me that he is going to be playing in the NFL. He had 5 tackles against Miami, Ohio. Was kind of the difference in that early game. So the defensive backs are really good. And on offense, obviously they have Cam Porter. That's a guy we've talked about a couple times in the offseason. Very talented back, 5'10", 220, built like a bulldozer. But the thing about him is he's been hurt. That's kind of the story of this Northwestern team, is that they've just been kind of there's not a lot of talent there, and the talent they do have is bumped and bruised. He had an okay game last week. They're off of a bye. They had a bye week. It's important to know the Northwestern had a bye week. But week before, he had 5 receptions for 85 yards, like 10 yards rushing, by the way. But he's effective. They try to get him the ball any way they can. The problem with Northwestern is that, first of all, their quarterback blows. Okay, Mike Wright was the incoming transfer from Vanderbilt. I was wrong about him. I thought he was going to come in and bring some electricity. No, he's really bad. He's as bad as who's the Georgia Tech quarterback that went to Nebraska last year and was just absolutely awful. He's sitting the bench. Same caliber guy, just a guy that can run, can't throw the ball at all. Now they're playing Jack Lausch, which our boy Mike is really familiar with. And he's okay, but he's not good. He's worse than both the Purdue quarterbacks. He's worse than both Hudson Card and Brown. So they don't have a quarterback that can make anything happen. And their defensive line is really small. Usually Northwestern has something on their defensive line. They've had guys go to the NFL before, but I think all their they got one guy that's over 300 pounds and they're too deep. And their defensive ends both weigh like 250. They got no push. They got no ass. So that's kind of their issue. They're gonna smush them, in my opinion. But what do you think?
No, I think you're spot on everything. I anticipate to see an awful lot of RPO out of Northwestern, just to give them that option, just to give them a quick passing game, just to get the ball out of the quarterback's hand, keep it himself, give it to the running back, what have you. Watched them earlier this season as well. You're absolutely right with Cam Porter being injured as well. He's their dog on that team. You look at him now; hasn't broke 400 yards and he has under 100 carries. If he was healthy, being the lifeblood of that offense, he'd be sitting at 150 carries already. 700 yards. Yeah. I would say.
I mean, even their wide receivers are bumped and bruised. The white guy that catches, he's got good hands, he's slow. He's hurt too. He's always bumped and bruised. They're just always bumped and bruised.
Yeah, I anticipate Ohio State to go out there and handle business. What I don't want to see is, let's not forget that Northwestern came out to a 10-point lead on Indiana the week prior. And Indiana had to whip out the smelling salts and like, oh shit, hey, we gave them 10, or we spotted 10, and they came out and scored 41. What was 41-24 on? Yeah.
Was that Northwestern or was that Michigan State? Because Michigan State scored 10
I think that's exactly what it is. Northwestern had the bye last week, didn't they?
Yes.
Northwestern had the bye.
I don't remember. I don't remember the Northwestern. But you're right. Your point is still valid, because Northwestern, they fight hard. I don't think that they're a poorly coached team. They beat Miami. They compete with Miami, Ohio. They competed with Duke, right? And Duke competed with there are highlights there where it's like, okay, this Duke team, I don't know how to describe it. Some shitty teams fade away. Purdue fades away, right? Purdue gets to shitty teams get to a point where they're like, okay, this game's over. I'm gonna go home now, right? Northwestern doesn't seem to do that, right? Northwestern's like, no, we're gonna finish this fight. God bless us, right?
Right. We're gonna get this A for effort regardless. Well, I mean, the other thing I think about is the facility in which Northwestern's been playing their games. Well, now they're going to have a lot more fans. They're going to have a lot more asses in seats this week. They're going to have a lot more supporters behind them playing this game at Wrigley Field. So as long as Ohio State doesn't go in there sleeping, I think so. And I tell you, I think my biggest concern is, I'm going to bring this up here, and I'm going to go ahead and move us around a bit. My concern is, hey, Chip Kelly, your offense, you need to look at that sideline right there. And there is going to be no corner routes in the red zone coming that way. There's no chance, no shot. No comebacks, no corner routes to that outside pylon, because you're going to put Jeremiah Smith in the fourth row. All right. But no, I think that let me get us right real quick. No, as long as Ohio State doesn't go in there sleepwalking, I think it's going to be a cool spectacle for a lot of players on both teams. Ohio State and Northwestern get to play in Wrigley Field, especially some of these seniors. Hey, Will Howard came to Ohio State, didn't think he'd get to go and play in probably one of the two most iconic ballparks of all time. But hey, get in there, handle business. Let's see some of these young defensive linemen again. Let's see Julian Sayin again. Let's see Devin Brown. Let's see James People run the ball. Let's get these guys that have put in the time in the summer, get in there, get that iconic, put their cleats on, step out there, catch a ball, some meaningful carries, some meaningful snaps on Wrigley Field. Let's get in and get out healthy and not look ahead to the big noon showdown with Indiana the following week.
Yeah, man, I'm with you. It will be interesting. Let's monitor the crowd size too, because I am curious. I have a feeling it might be 60% Ohio State, 75% Ohio State.
It's expected.
These neutral site games, I don't know why people do them against Ohio State. Yeah. I mean, I think, was it Northwestern played Ohio State once and Cleveland, I think, and that was all Ohio State fans. And then Cincinnati did the same thing when they moved it to Paul Brown. That was all Ohio State fans.
Right.
So these teams don't really have a good track record when it comes to neutral site games, but we'll see. It's so funny that Ohio State fans travel so well, because the home atmosphere for Ohio State is not top tier. It's not top tier. Like, what was it rated in college football? It was like the number 5 stadium.
I think 5. Yeah, I think you're in the ballpark. I think it was 5.
Yeah, I don't see that.
At least, again, this is not a big, this isn't one that we circle in July. Like, they're going to play Northwestern. Hey, Wrigley Field adds some allure to it, but it's not like we're Alabama and we're playing Mercer this week.
God, no, there's some interesting SEC games. That's for sure. Sure. But all right, are you ready to roll into the Big Ten schedule?
Let's roll into the Big Ten schedule.
Sons up, but see now. We had you not fill out your week 10, and now we got Mike gone. So I went 3-3 last week on 55, 53-2. Mike went 2-4. He's 53, 55-2. Ryan also was not here. He's on vacation. But we're back at it. Let's move on.
Do we want to build a cool lore? Let's say he's in like Barbados, or he's like he's climbing.
I'm pretty sure he told everybody he was going to New York. But here's the funny part, okay? I don't think we said that on the podcast. So we had a couple of people message me, and they were like, "Where's that pussy at that was talking shit about them losing to Penn State?" And I was like, "Oh, okay."
They wanted blood. Okay.
They wanted blood, dude. So I'm gonna have to reach out to Stuart and be like, "Hey, dude, you gotta defend yourself, man." Yeah. I completely
if that's the case, he was doing humanitarian work. That's what he was doing.
He was building houses for the homeless.
Right. Yeah.
I was like, I forgot. I remember him saying Ohio State was going to lose. I forgot that we didn't tell people he was going to be out. So it looked like he was just like, fuck that. Like, I talked
He said,
But,
"How did they
yeah,
get
so,
my home address?" Yeah.
so I'll have to message him. But all right, Friday night, UCLA heads to Washington to take on the Huskies in your neighborhood, who are favored by 3.5 points. Chris, what do you say?
Honestly, we've been absolutely destroying UCLA all season, and they're starting to. I'm not saying they're figuring it out, but they're growing. But
dude, I think that they're figuring it out.
Yeah, I mean, they. Let's be honest, they look leaps and bounds better than what they looked week 1, week 2.
They look competent.
But I mean, you can say that about any, run of the mill average team week 1 and 2. But UCLA is figuring it out. I don't think it's time to run Deshaun Foster out of town just yet, even though he's still figuring out where he plays. But give me the Huskies. You said 3?
3.5.
3.5. After the Huskies getting just embarrassed by Penn State last week, they're going to bounce back. Give me the Huskies.
I'm with you, dude. I'm going to go with Washington. Washington has some talent. It is harder because UCLA is inching closer and getting better. We're getting to the point where I'm like looking at their schedule, being like, well, shit, maybe they're not that bad. Like, you know what I mean? When they got wiped out by Indiana, we didn't know Indiana was going to be good. So we were all like, well, UCLA sucks, throw them in the trash. But now it's like, well, hold on a second. So it's a little like, but I'm going to go. I agree with you. Washington does have a lot of talent. They're going to bounce back. Next game, we both agreed. Ohio State's favored by 30.5 over Northwestern. We both agreed Ohio State, correct?
Yes, I'll take it. Give me the Bucks.
All right. Next game, Michigan State is heading to Champaign, Illinois to take on the Fighting Illini, who are favored by 2.5 points. What do you say?
Michigan State is not coming out of there with champagne and roses. Give me the Fighting Illini. Big. They were so strong. They looked good. They had their big win. They wore the awesome jerseys. They went into the big house, got that win. Actually, no, it was in Champaign, wasn't it? They've stumbled, they've fallen, but they're going to go ahead and salvage this season, and they're going to get into a nice little bowl game here come the end of December. But give me Illini.
So I'm actually going to disagree with you on this one. I'm going to take Michigan State. This was another difficult one though because both teams have looked like doo-doo. Michigan State we talked about them going up by 10 and then just getting run out of town by Indiana. Illinois, they got kind of they didn't get humiliated, but Minnesota definitely took care of business. They're both coming off of a bye, so there's not really a huge coaching edge here. I'd like to say Jonathan Smith is better than Brett Bielema, so that's where I'm leaning. But again, this is a harder game to pick. On to the next one. Penn State travels to Purdue to take on the Boilermakers. The Nittany Lions are favored by 28.5 points. Chris, what do you think?
Now, let me ask you about that spread. What do you think about that after watching what Ohio State did and winning by 45? Do you think that's a little low?
Yeah, I do. I was trying to think of like a more educated, well thought out response, but I don't have one. Yeah, dude, Penn State. That's why I'm taking Penn State. Penn State likes to pour it on too. Like I don't. James Franklin's a guy that likes to cover the spread against some of these shitball teams. So
he likes to cover the spread, but he's gonna pat that resume. He's gonna continue to pat that resume to look at Penn State. Committee, come tomorrow. Committee, look at our line of work, and I think they win. I think they win big. I think they cover. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. So, but we're all both on Penn State. On to the next one. Nebraska heads out to LA to take on USC, who is favored by 9 whole points. Chris, what do you think?
I think that travel is a lot. I think I would argue that from a more traditional Big Ten team, which what's traditional now because they've obviously been in longer than this new wave of Pac-10 or Pac-12 teams. I think they would have if you want to call them traditional Big Ten teams, they have the shortest travel. We've seen a lot of these teams like Rutgers and these teams that are far, far East Coast come to the West Coast and get just absolutely hammered by it. I have to argue they'd probably be the closest of a Big Ten traditional team that have to go out West. With that being said, oh man, I have such a hard time because Lincoln Riley is just finding new ways every week to just not so much blow my mind, but I'm like, hey man, you have this. Like you've got pieces, and you're
Yep.
finding ways to lose games. It's almost harder to lose these games than win them for him, but he finds a way. But this week, 4 p.m. Eastern, so we're talking a 1 o'clock game on the West Coast. Give me USC.
I'm with you, dude. I'm gonna take USC. Nebraska didn't look good against UCLA, right? And I think USC is better than UCLA, so I'm gonna ride with USC as well. Both teams are coming off. Let me make sure. I don't want to sound stupid here. Yeah, both teams are coming off a bye week. Lincoln Riley, I still think he's a good coach, right? Of course, Matt Rule's a good coach too, but USC's got some pieces. I'm gonna ride with USC. Next game, Rutgers travels to Maryland. Take on the Terrapins, and the Scarlet Knights are favored. No, I'm sorry. I'm an idiot. Maryland is favored by 6 points. The Terrapins are favored by 6 points over Rutgers. Chris, what do you think?
Rutgers have looked elementary in the last couple games they've played. Give me Maryland. It's hard to pick Rutgers right now. It really is. I've seen them just get stomped and embarrassed. They didn't have a terrible game last week, but right. I've seen them get stomped before. And I think that even as the tier of, hey, we didn't get stomped, we didn't just get, drug, but I think they probably put a little bit more into that tank than the rollover will be for this week. So go ahead and give me Maryland on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you. I am going to ride with Rutgers. I thought Rutgers did look good against Minnesota and Maryland, but here's the issue. Maryland also looked competitive against Oregon. They did not get run out at all. So I do want to give them credit there.
Right.
I don't like Mike Loxley. It's amazed me that Maryland hasn't completely fallen off of a cliff yet, but I am going to go with Rutgers.
No, I see that.
Especially getting the 6 points. Last game of the Big Ten slate, the Oregon Ducks travel to Madison, Wisconsin to take on the Badgers. The Ducks are favored by 14.5. Chris, what are you thinking?
Oh, the Ducks are going to be jumping around all over Wisconsin. Give me you said it was what was that, 13 or 14?
14.5.
Yeah, hey, Dan Lanning's got these guys on one vision, and it's going to be a big. Is this the NBC Peacock game of the week, isn't it? Yeah, give me Oregon. Give me them to cover 14.
Peacock?
I think so.
Peacock?
The fact that it's 7:30 and NBC, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm also taking Oregon. Oregon didn't look super great against Maryland, and Wisconsin's coming off of a bye week, so it does make me a little scared. But yeah, I'm gonna ride with Oregon. I'm gonna ride with Oregon for sure. We do have some Big Ten news. Oh, man, Nebraska just announced that Dana Holgerson is going to be the offensive coordinator this week. So that's something interesting to monitor. It's not very often you see offensive coordinators change 10 weeks in the season. And Jack Del Rio, who was the head coach and assistant for Wisconsin, stepped down after his drunk driving charge. So yeah, little interesting tidbits here and there.
Still got some of that Jacksonville Duval in them, huh? Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh Lordy, what else we got? College football. We get our second week of playoff rankings come tomorrow. That is true. Yes. Looking ahead, bigger scale of things. You've got big matchups this next week coming up that might have some impact on the college football landscape. You got Pitt and Clemson. You've got let's not forget Alabama and Mercer. Okay, let's not forget that Mercer. Let's not forget for the first time ever that Mercer has a better record than Alabama.
Hey, shout out to Donovan James, Mercer graduate. Who's actually the lead editor at Hoosier State of Mind, by the way. So, big shout out to Donovan.
Mercer is currently 8-1, so let's. I might hit the callback button on the remote and just keep my eye on it.
Hold on, before we move off of that point, the Mercer football head coach, I believe, it's Mike Jacobs, former Ohio State Buckeye. Fun fact.
Yep. Okay, again, they are 8-1. You've got LSU and you've got Florida. You've got who else we've got on the schedule that's worth a damn? Boise State. Oh, the big game that's the big one that Herb Street will be at. He'll be at Tennessee, Georgia. That'll be your nighttime game.
Tennessee is squarely in the playoff contention.
Well, it's seeing Georgia get beat last week, and now, they're on the outside looking in. If they get one more, you would have to assume they were out. Yeah, you can't be.
I mean, at this point, they're at this point, assuming everything, because they got 2 losses, right?
Yeah, and they might not be in a conference championship game.
So they have to
2 conference losses.
I think they have to get lucky, because you have a lot. I mean, because Tennessee, they have to beat Tennessee, right? Because Tennessee's in the as of now, where are they ranked?
They're at 7, but they're sitting at 8-1. Georgia's sitting at 7-2.
So Georgia, but then Tennessee's get 2. So you might flip those teams, because the SEC is going to get at least 2 teams in it, right?
Right.
But you're going to have Texas and someone else. But there's just a lot of teams that are still in it, man. Oregon, Texas, BYU, Miami's got 1 loss, but they're still. Everybody's acting like that's the end of the world, but that's classic Miami. They're still in it. An ACC team's going to get there.
Naturally.
Notre Dame is still in it. Boise State's still in it. I mean, Army, they're still undefeated, aren't they? Yeah, because they beat Texas. Washington State's only got 1 loss. I'm pretty sure Washington State's only got 1 loss. Yeah. And then SMU and Colorado. SMU and Colorado both have only 2 losses.
Yep. Yes.
But they're both.
SMU's got 1.
SMU has 1 loss, and I think they're in the passenger seat for the conference. They're in the driver's seat for the conference championship. I think Colorado is too.
I will sing the praises of Jake Dickert, the head coach of Washington State, to anybody who might be hiring at Ohio State one day. I think he's doing a great job. He's a
coach. He is.
He's a good coach.
He took over. He took over for the former Hawaii coach who left because he was forced to get a vaccine. I can't remember his name now.
Yes.
Yeah, who's also a good coach, by the way. So
no,
but he was. I don't think he was long enough. I don't think he was there long enough to build anything. I don't remember. I have to go back and look. No. But yeah, Dicker's done a great job.
But when it comes to Ohio, no, you're absolutely right. This week is primed for a whoa. I didn't see that coming. Not these little upsets. There's a 1 or 2. I didn't see that one, and it's just part of a longer season, more grueling season, a season where conferences have never been heavier on the top side as well. So let's lock in for a good week of college football.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's definitely going to be interesting for sure.
Any plans for the weekend? Any plans for the weekend? Anything fun?
Watching Northwestern, and there's also a trading card show at Kip's Cards. Big shout out to Kip's Cards, not a sponsor.
That's what I'm looking for.
Spend enough money for them to be a sponsor. But that'll be trying to knock that out before the big game against Northwestern. So that's what I am doing this weekend. What about you?
Oh, I got to start knocking out birthday presents, bud. I got a 12-year-old that's about to be a teen here at the end of the month. And it sucks because she's her birthday's always the weekend of Thanksgiving, but now with this Thanksgiving being later in the year, her birthday's on a Monday, and then the Ohio State Michigan game is that Saturday. Always weird. Yeah, always weird.
She's gonna be 13, you said?
Oh yeah, I know, right? 13 going on 38. What she acts like.
I can shop for 13-year-old boys. My nephews are that age. We've got one nephew who's 11, the other one's 14.
You don't want to shop. You don't want to shop for this one. She loves Netflix K-dramas.
What?
Netflix K-dramas.
What is that?
Yeah. Lovey-dovey Korean dramas. I can't even search for anything on Netflix.
Oh, I thought you said cage dramas. I'm like, what genre is that?
You say Cage? Like Nicolas Cage?
Like Nick Cage. I'm like, there's just a whole Nick. Like, she sounds awesome. Chris.
You're just flipping through your phone. Like, where are these Cage dramas?
Watching nothing but Wicker Man on repeat.
Oh, the bees. But
that's awesome.
To the 69 giggity of you that tuned in and watched, we've got a lot of thumbs up, hearts, likes, all this, that, and the third. We appreciate each and every one of you. To any and all veterans out there that happen to turn into the podcast, thank you for your service. Thank you for your commitment and dedication to this country. And we will be back again Monday. We're hopefully talking about a big victory at Wrigley Field and looking ahead to the matchup that everyone now has circled on their calendars, Ohio State and Indiana. But for the Ohio State of Mind podcast, I And Chris, you can find me at crunyon15 on X. Josh?
Yeah, man, follow me on X at Josh Keatley16. Guys, I appreciate the texts. I appreciate the messages. I appreciate the DMs. Even if they're negative, I love it. I think it's great. Just please give us a like and subscribe on YouTube. Please. I think it's great that we're having so many people click on X and click on Facebook, but we need we're on those YouTube numbers go up. You can text me about Ohio State being overrated all you want, brother. Love it. Love it. Just click the little thumbs up. Appreciate it.
You're gonna get that response like once I see that subscribe count go up, then I'll respond.
Dude, I got a text from an unknown. I must have gave out my phone number on the show like forever ago. I don't know.
I'm gonna start putting up on the banner down here.
I mean, I was thought that the Penn State show was going to be big by the amount of texts and calls and messages I received. And then I get on YouTube and I got like 15 views. I'm like, what the fuck, dude? I got way more than 15 people that messaged me. But yeah.
All right. Hey, we appreciate the views. We even more appreciate the like or a subscribe on the YouTube page. But I'm Chris. That's Josh. This is the Ohio State of Mind podcast. We will see you next week here Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern, and go Bucks.
Go Bucks.